Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know today that God is on the throne and He is preparing you for a brand new season. You may not see it yet, you may not feel it yet, but when God is about to shift your life, something amazing begins to happen. Doors that were once closed will swing wide open. Challenges that felt too big will begin to shrink before your eyes. Favor will chase you down, and strength you didn't know you had will rise up on the inside of you. See, God's timing is perfect. And when you're walking into your shift, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right breakthroughs will come into your life. Get ready, because what God is doing is greater than anything you could ask or imagine. Let this be the moment you lean in, believe big, and receive the shift He's bringing your way. God will close the wrong doors to lead you to the right one, and it often happens when we least expect it. Many times in life we have a plan, a desire, a dream that we believe is meant to work out a certain way. We pursue a particular path, hoping that this is the one that will lead us to happiness and fulfillment. But sometimes in the middle of all our planning, the doors we want so badly to open just seem to stay shut. Maybe it's a job you thought you were perfect for that never called you back. A relationship that ended abruptly despite all the effort you put into it. Or a financial opportunity that disappeared when you thought it was finally going to happen. What feels like a painful disappointment in the moment is actually God moving behind the scenes, protecting you and redirecting you towards something better. The closed door is never meant to defeat you. It's meant to reroute you into a greater plan that God has already designed for your life. When you look back on your journey, you'll see that the moments you felt the most rejected or overlooked were actually set-up moments for your promotion. God's purpose is much bigger than your plan. His wisdom is perfect, and He can see the entire picture when all you can see is a small piece of the puzzle. What feels like a loss is actually God sparing you from stepping into something that was never meant to last or fulfill you. That shut door could have led to unnecessary heartache, stress, or stagnation. God knows your future. He knows where every path will take you. So, if He allows a door to close, it's because there's a better one up ahead with your name on it. That closed door is a signal that it's time to trust Him more, especially when you don't understand what's going on. Every closed door you face requires faith, patience, and the humility to say, Lord, I don't know why this happened, but I believe You have a greater plan. And that's where God does His most powerful work in the unseen. In the waiting, in the seasons when we're not sure what will happen next. It's during these times that your character grows, your endurance deepens, and your trust in Him becomes more real than ever before. And then when you least expect it, the right door opens. A door that feels tailor-made for you. A door that reveals that everything you thought you had lost was actually part of a divine setup for a more meaningful future. Maybe it's a career path that brings you fulfillment and joy. Maybe it's a new friendship or relationship that uplifts and supports you like never before. Maybe it's an opportunity that seems impossible and yet fits perfectly into who you are. Whatever it is, when God swings that right door open, it will happen with an ease and a peace that you never had before. That's why you can't let closed doors make you bitter, discouraged, or angry. Every setback you face is only preparing you for the comeback God already has in mind. His no today is preparing you for a bigger yes tomorrow. Even if you can't see it in the moment, know that God's timing is impeccable. What looks like a delay is really a divine appointment in the making. And even if you've been knocking on the same door for years, hoping it would swing open, God may be telling you to let it go so He can lead you to a better one. If you embrace the closed doors with the right attitude and trust that God will not fail you, you'll look back one day and thank Him for the very thing that once frustrated you. You'll see clearly that His plan was to shift you toward a path of greater purpose, greater blessing, and greater joy. The key is to stay faithful even when nothing seems to make sense. Because when God is about to shift your life, one of the first signs is that wrong doors will close so that the right one can swing wide open. Let your heart stay open to Him in this process, knowing that you are never stuck, you are simply being guided. Let your soul lean into His promises. Let your spirit hold on to hope. Let your mind be renewed with the assurance that this divine redirection is always leading you toward a future better than you could have ever planned for yourself. Your setback is a setup for your comeback, and it's one of the most powerful truths you'll ever embrace in your life. Every single one of us knows what it's like to experience a setback, a plan that didn't work out, a dream that seemed to collapse right in front of our eyes, a season of life that felt like it was going backwards instead of moving forwards. Maybe you lost a job you thought was stable, or you poured yourself into a relationship that ended abruptly, or an opportunity you had your heart set on suddenly disappeared. In those moments, it's so easy to feel defeated. It's tempting to believe that all the progress you've made is lost forever, that you've somehow missed your chance, and that the story will end in disappointment. But that's not how God works. In His hands, every setback is never final. It's simply a setup for a greater comeback than you ever imagined. When we're in the middle of a setback, it often feels like the door to our future is closed forever. Our emotions scream that this is the end, that nothing good can come out of what just happened. But God sees the full picture. What looks like a dead end to you is really a turning point in your journey. God is too wise to waste a single tear, too strategic to allow you to go through a loss without positioning you for a gain. Every setback is an invitation to go deeper, to grow stronger, to become more resilient and more reliant on His power instead of your own. Think of all the people in history who have faced devastating setbacks only to rise to new heights, because they refused to give up. They decided not to let one chapter define their entire story. That's exactly what God is calling you to do. A setback is not a sign that God has abandoned you. It's proof that He's preparing you for something greater. When everything around you feels like it's being stripped away, that's when God is often rearranging your life so that you can receive what you truly need, not just what you thought you wanted. Your comeback is going to be greater than your setback. That's a promise you can hold on to. The loss you face is making room for God's restoration. The disappointment you felt is creating capacity for greater joy. Even the pain you went through is producing in you a perseverance and endurance that will serve you well in your next season. God never allows a setback without already crafting the blueprint for your comeback. Even now, behind the scenes, He is aligning circumstances, bringing new people into your life, opening new doors and putting desires in your heart that you never even thought were possible. And here's the beautiful thing: the comeback God has for you will always be tailored to who you are becoming, not just who you were before the setback. Sometimes a setback is what God uses to shift your focus, change your priorities, and deepen your trust in Him. You'll look back one day and see that what felt like a setback was actually a strategic pause, a divine interruption that gave you time to grow, to heal, to prepare for the next level. God is in the process of turning all that pain into power, all that struggle into strength, all that confusion into greater clarity. So don't despise the setback. Don't resent the closed door, the failed plan, or the loss that left you feeling empty. Let those very experiences be the fuel that drives your comeback. Let them remind you that you serve a God who is bigger than any obstacle you faced, more creative than an end you encounter, and more determined than any disappointment that tries to steal your joy. Even if you can't see it right now, your story is far from over. You are being set up for a season of restoration, acceleration, and breakthrough. God is using this chapter as the perfect backdrop for the most incredible comeback of your life. And what's on the other side of the setback will leave you in awe of His goodness and His faithfulness. Favor will find you in unexpected places. And that's one of the most exciting things about the way God works. When we think about favor, we often picture it showing up in obvious or comfortable ways: a promotion at the job we already have, a blessing that comes right after we pray for it, or a breakthrough that happens exactly when we thought it would. But God's favor rarely follows the path we expect. His favor loves to surprise us. It has a way of showing up in places we never thought to look, knocking on doors we didn't even realize were there. and meeting us in moments when we weren't sure anything good was going to happen at all. That's because God isn't limited by our plans or our expectations. He's not restricted by our calendars, our assumptions, or even our sense of what's possible. His favor can come through the most unlikely people and arrive at the most unexpected times. You might find favor in the middle of a season that feels dry and barren, or when you're stepping into an unfamiliar territory that seems beyond your reach. Favor doesn't wait for the perfect circumstances. It goes where God sends it. When you look at the stories in the Bible, you see this over and over again. David wasn't even invited to the house when the prophet came looking for the next king, yet God's favor still found him in the pasture. Ruth was an outsider, a Moabite widow in a foreign land, and still favor found her in the field of Boaz. Joseph was overlooked by his own brothers and sold into slavery, but God's favor raised him up to a place of authority in Egypt. None of them were where they thought they'd end up. None of them had a perfect resume. But favor wasn't looking at their past, it was looking at their future. That's the same for you. Even when you feel overlooked, undervalued, or uncertain about your next step, God is orchestrating divine connections and divine appointments behind the scenes. Favor is already on the way toward you, even if you can't see it yet. Maybe it will come through a conversation you never expected to have, or an opportunity that seems too small or too strange at first. Maybe it will show up as a new skill you discover you have, a new friendship that opens a door, or an idea that sparks when you least feel creative. Favor can turn what looks like an ordinary day into the beginning of an extraordinary season. That's why it's so important to stay faithful and open even in the ordinary places. You never know when the person standing next to you in line could be the one God uses to unlock a new chapter. You never know when that small act of obedience, that simple yes to what God is stirring in your heart, could become the catalyst for a massive shift. Favor loves to visit those who stay expectant, those who don't give up just because they can't see the big picture yet. And most importantly, God's favor is not earned by perfection, it's received by grace. You don't have to jump through hoops or make yourself perfect to experience the goodness He has in store. You just need to trust that His heart toward you is good and that His timing is precise. Favor is His gift, and He delights in surprising His children with it. So don't overlook the small things. Don't despise the quiet seasons. Don't assume that just because you can't see it all working together, nothing is happening. God's favor often grows in the hidden places of our hearts long before it's revealed for everyone to see. When you stay rooted in faith and gratitude, you make room for His favor to show up wherever you are. Whether you're in the spotlight or in the shadows, whether you feel ready or unprepared, favor will find you. That's one of the most beautiful promises we can hold on to as we walk into the unknown future God has prepared. Your pain will birth your purpose, and this is one of the most powerful and profound truths that we can ever embrace. It can be hard to believe when you're in the middle of a difficult season, when you're carrying a burden so heavy that it feels like it could crush you, or when your heart is aching so deeply that it's hard to see anything good. But the reality is that God never wastes a single tear. Every bit of pain you go through is not without purpose. Even though it may feel like a setback, a loss, or interruption to the story you thought you were living, your pain is actually one of the most fertile grounds for the seeds of your future purpose to grow. When we experience pain, whether it's the pain of disappointment, rejection, grief, or failure, it shapes us. It humbles us and gives us a depth we wouldn't have otherwise. It stretches our compassion so that we can truly feel for someone else who's hurting. It opens our eyes to things we might have missed if life had been too easy or too comfortable. God often uses the very things that cause us pain to prepare us for something greater, something that will eventually impact the lives of those around us. That's because God doesn't see pain the way we do. To us, pain feels like an enemy, something to avoid at all costs. But to God, pain can be a teacher, a refiner, and even a guide. Think about the greatest figures who ever walked this earth. They all had to pass through deep valleys before they stood on high places. Every great purpose requires a process, and that process often passes through places that seem dark and painful. But on the other side, what emerges is stronger, wiser, and more equipped to do what God created it to do. Your greatest ministry often comes out of your greatest misery. The very things you thought would disqualify you can become the platform for your calling. Maybe you walked through a painful breakup that shattered your heart, but now you can speak into the hearts of people who feel lost and hopeless. Maybe you fought a long, exhausting illness and felt like you'd never make it, but now you have a compassion and strength that can't be faked. Maybe you lost someone you loved dearly and thought you'd never smile again, but that grief has grown into a deep reservoir of empathy that allows you to comfort others who grieve. That's what God does. He takes the pain we never thought we could survive and little by little uses it to carve out a place in us that can hold our purpose. The challenges that tried to break you end up becoming the very things that make you unbreakable. What the enemy meant to destroy you with, God turns into your training ground. And as you lean into Him through those hard seasons, you discover that you're becoming someone you never could have been without those trials. That's why you can trust that your pain is not wasted. Even when it feels meaningless, even when you have more questions than answers, even when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, God is using every bit of it. Every sleepless night, every tear cried in secret, every burden you thought was too heavy to bear, all of it is shaping you into a vessel ready for your purpose. What looks like a dead end is really a doorway. What looks like the end of a chapter is really the first page of a greater story that God is writing through your life. And the beauty is that one day you will look back on this very season and see clearly how your pain became the soil that nurtured your purpose. You will look at the places that were once dry and barren and realize they were the exact spots where God planted something new and beautiful in you. Nothing you go through is random, and none of it is outside of His redemptive plan. Even now, in the middle of whatever you're facing, God is already using your pain to birth your pains. God will surround you with the right people, and this is one of the most powerful ways He prepares you for the next chapter of your life. Sometimes when we pray for breakthroughs, we imagine God changing our circumstances or making a way in some obvious manner. But so often His answer comes through people. The right connections, friendships, mentors, and encouragers can shift the entire trajectory of your life. God knows exactly who you need in your corner, who will speak life into your dreams, and who will challenge you to grow when you'd rather stay comfortable. And when you trust Him with your future, He begins to orchestrate divine encounters that will set you up for the destiny He's placed inside of you. When God is moving you into a new season, one of the first things you'll notice is the people around you begin to change. Some relationships that once felt close might naturally begin to fade. Not because they were necessarily bad, but because they no longer fit where God is taking you. It can feel unsettling at first, even lonely, as if something is being stripped away. But that's often a sign that God is making space for the new. It's His way of clearing room for the connections that will help you step into your purpose. That's why it's so important not to hold on too tightly to relationships that have run their course. Sometimes we can try to keep people in our life just because we're comfortable with them or scared to move forward without them. But when God is trying to surround you with the right people for your next level, you have to trust His pruning process. Let Him remove the wrong influences and don't fight the divine shift. What feels like a loss is actually part of the setup for your greatest gain. And then as you make room, God will begin to introduce you to people who align with His calling for you. These are people who will celebrate your wins without jealousy and encourage you during your losses without judgment. They will speak truth when you need to hear it, not just what's easy to say. They will see the gift in you that even you might overlook at times. They will pray for you, stand in the gap for you, and remind you who you are when you feel like you've forgotten. God knows that none of us were designed to do life alone. And the beautiful part is that these connections often come when you least expect them. Maybe you'll sit next to someone new at church who becomes a lifelong friend. Maybe you'll work alongside someone at a job you didn't even plan on keeping long term, only to realize they're part of the bigger picture God is unfolding. Maybe someone you admire will unexpectedly reach out to mentor you. These kinds of encounters feel random on the surface, but there is nothing random in the kingdom of God. Every meeting is a divine appointment. When you look back at your journey so far, you can probably see people who appeared at exactly the right time and spoke exactly the right words to help you move forward. That's evidence that God has always been surrounding you with the right people. And if He's done it before, He will do it again. That's why you can be at peace even in the in-between times. Trust that God is carefully weaving the threads of new relationships into your story, knowing exactly who you'll meet as you pursue your purpose. And as you embrace these connections, you'll begin to recognize that it's not just about what these people can do for you, it's also about what God will do through you for them. Every relationship is a two-way street of encouragement, support, and purpose. The right people will help you grow, and you will help them grow too. Together, you'll create a community that reflects God's heart for His people. A community that empowers each member to rise higher and walk fully into their God-given calling. Your faith will grow deeper before your breakthrough. And this is one of the most important truths you can embrace when you're waiting on God. Breakthroughs don't usually happen the moment you ask for them. They don't always come on our timeline, and they rarely look exactly like we imagine. Instead, they come after a season of deep, sometimes difficult growth, a season where your faith is stretched, tested, and refined. God is much more interested in who you're becoming than just in what you're receiving. And that means He'll often take you through a process that grows your trust in Him long before you see the promise. That process can feel uncomfortable. Waiting for a breakthrough is rarely easy, especially when you feel like you've done everything you can do. You might pray and believe and hope and still see no change in your circumstances. It's during those moments that God is working beneath the surface. He's teaching you patience and perseverance. He's rooting your trust so deep that you won't be shaken when obstacles come. He's drawing you closer to Himself so that your joy doesn't depend on the outcome of your prayers, but on His presence. This is how faith grows deeper. Every time you choose to believe in God's promises despite what you see, you put down new roots. Every time you hold on to His word, even though your feelings want to give up, you strengthen the foundation under your feet. Every time you take a step forward when you can't see the whole path, you grow in the kind of faith that cannot be moved. The waiting seasons may feel long and dry, but they're never wasted. They're fertile ground where God cultivates resilience, endurance, and spiritual maturity in you. When God allows these delays, it's not because He enjoys seeing you struggle or because He's forgotten you. It's because He loves you too much to give you a shallow version of His promise. He's making sure you have the character, the strength, and the wisdom to steward the breakthrough once it arrives. A quick blessing without a deep foundation might feel good for a moment, but it wouldn't last. God cares more about your future than your present comfort, so He's preparing you to handle the greater things up ahead. And as your faith grows deeper, you'll discover that your perspective begins to change too. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs that something is going wrong, you'll recognize them as part of God's process for your good. Instead of feeling discouraged when your breakthrough seems delayed, you'll remember that every day you wait is another day for God to shape you into the person who can walk confidently into His promises. Instead of relying on your own strength to make things happen, you'll lean more fully on His power to do what you cannot do. That deepened faith will transform your prayers, your choices, and your entire outlook. You'll pray with greater boldness and greater humility at the same time, knowing that God is able to do far more than you could ever ask or imagine. You'll make decisions based on trust rather than fear, choosing to wait on God's timing instead of forcing your own way. You'll appreciate the small daily signs of His goodness instead of overlooking them while you wait for the big miracle. And most of all, you'll draw closer to Him as the source of your strength and peace. That's when you'll realize that the greatest gift in the waiting wasn't just the breakthrough itself, but the depth of relationship you built with God along the way. The faith that is rooted and established in His love is a treasure that no circumstance can take away. It's a faith that will anchor you not just in this season, but in every season to come. And when the breakthrough does finally come, and it will find you stronger, wiser, more grounded, and more ready to receive all that God has in store for you.